to fight for every drop of water or die. To fight for every drop of water or die, that is the challenge facing China, said China's Minister for Water Resources. A country with 20% of the world's population, but only 7% of its fresh water. Such an imbalance can only mean one thing: complications and pain for the Chinese people. This gap will only grow bigger with time. With population growth and industrialization comes a higher demand for water. Yet climate change has dried up 28,000 rivers in China and depletes groundwater aquifers at a rate of 1 to 3 meters every year. This, along with the fact that most of China's population is in the north, while 80% of its water is in the south, is causing major concerns to people's livelihood. China's former Premier Wen Jiabao even commented that water shortages threaten the very survival of the Chinese nation. The response from the Chinese Communist Party? Build a hydropower dam that will dwarf the Three Gorges. The dam, designed to be built on the Yalong-Zangbo River, located just 18 miles from the Indian border, is alleged to resolve the water shortage problem in China. The Yalong-Zangbo is the highest river in the world at 5,000 feet above sea level. It takes a nearly 8,000-foot plunge at the Yalong-Zangbo Grand Canyon, which makes it a delectable target for the party's hydropower engineers. China's government created the so-called South to North Water Diversion (SNWD) project, an array of canals and tunnels that intend to divert water from the Yangtze River towards Beijing. 2 already built routes have been operational since 2014. The eastern route directs water to Beijing through repurposing the 2,500-year-old Grand Canal, and a central route uses the Han River, a tributary of the Yangtze. A third route is being planned in the west, intending to utilize additional dam projects from the Tibetan Plateau. The SNWD cost $80 billion, displaced more than 400,000 Chinese citizens and shut down countless local industries as party bosses attempted to reduce the pollution that the water would be subjected to from the country's notoriously toxic and poorly regulated industrial sector during its 1,000-mile journey. Some analysts have speculated the Yalong-Zangbo Dam project is intended to tie into the SNWD. A 2015 study published in Nature magazine found the SNWD was dubious from its creation. Pollution and environmental fallout, as well as high maintenance costs and water prices, make the project unsustainable both ecologically and socially. And the transfer of water does not address the underlying causes of water shortages in the north, namely pollution and inefficient agricultural, industrial and urban use, the effects of which we have been studying over the past decade. Then why would the Communist Party bother with this project if it's not going to solve the problem? The simple answer: corruption. When completed, the new dam will generate up to 60 gigawatts of electricity, and that means profit. According to a January article by Nikkei Asia, the dam is slated to produce 3 times more hydroelectricity for the party than the Three Gorges does. Incentives for economic growth in China still outweigh incentives for pollution control and limits on water extraction, despite ever stricter environmental laws, said the paper. The study points out that increasing supply is viewed as the main solution to water scarcity because of the conflicting roles of the Chinese government as both entrepreneur and regulator. Many industries, such as the country's huge hydropower sector, profit from expensive solutions to boosting water supplies, the paper continued. You see, the Chinese Communist Party is not your typical totalitarian government. It is a uniquely selfish form of chaotic political control that has always had a willingness to sacrifice not only anyone who does not align with it, but also its own people. The motto of the CCP under Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution was "Battle with heaven, fight with the earth, struggle with humans, therein lies endless joy." Decades later, this deviant approach to governance and moral philosophy has not only caused domestic water scarcity problems, but has also manifested itself as a geopolitical problem for China's neighbouring countries in the form of weaponized water. The most recent water battle between the communist regime and its neighbours lies with India, as the Yalong Zangbo is a river which flows west to east from Tibet across China before entering the Arunachal Pradesh region of India and eventually becoming the Brahmaputra River. Nikki says the construction of the dam is moving ahead without China's government, the CCP, entering into or even discussing water sharing agreements with downstream neighbours India and Bangladesh. Yet 18 countries and close to 2 billion people rely on a dozen rivers, which mostly originate in the Tibetan Plateau. With the proposed dam being so close to the Indian border, the country has valid cause for concern. The CCP has placed no less than 11 dams on the Mekong River, a crucial vein in the Southeast Asia region, which travels 3,000 miles from southwest China through Myanmar, Thailand, Laos and Cambodia before emptying into the South China Sea. The Communist Party has 3 additional dams for the Mekong in planning. What exactly does the CCP intend to do with all these dams? Is it to solve the water shortage problem, to generate profit, or something else? In April of 2020, the Stimson Center, a US-based think tank, published a report titled "New Evidence: How China Turned Off the Tap on the Mekong River" that found in 2019 the CCP used its dams to withhold water from downstream regions as it enjoyed record precipitation. The report relied on data from Eyes on Earth, which used satellite measurements of microwave radiation to determine water level in the region. The Stimson Center describes the findings as an ongoing pattern that has driven numerous wet season droughts. Adding the increasing frequency of wet season drought in the lower basin tracks closely to the way China releases water during the dry season and restricts water during the wet season. China is impounding much more water than it ever has in the past during wet seasons and releasing more water than ever before during the dry seasons. China's dam management is causing erratic and devastating changes in water levels downstream. The report says for 5 months in 2019, China's dams held back so much water that they entirely prevented the annual monsoon-driven rise in river level at Chiang Saen, Thailand. This has not happened since modern records have been kept, said the Stimson Center. Researchers found the CCP's motive was to replenish its dams after emptying them to produce hydroelectric power between January and June of 2019, a time when hydro was selling at a 300% premium in the mainland. The amount of rainfall and snowmelt in China was enough to keep water levels in much of the lower Mekong above average between June 2019 and March 2020, if China's dams were not restricting that water, reads the report. Therefore, constructing these dams was actually a strategic move by the CCP. Not only are they harvesting as much water as possible during the wet season and selling the electricity generated to make a profit, but they are also controlling the water supply to Southeast Asia. At a time when there's increasing tension between India and the CCP, this is a significant leverage that Beijing has over its opponent. The dams are essentially hitting two birds with one stone. Yet, in the end, the dams are still not resolving the fundamental issue of water scarcity for the Chinese people. It only benefits the regime. The Nature magazine study said that North China could be self-sufficient in water without the transfer of water from the south. But the necessary steps, among them improving local pollution monitoring and building better irrigation infrastructure, are inadequately implemented. Even the globalist and CCP-friendly World Economic Forum was critical of the communist regime's environmental controls and called for China's leaders to use their heads when it comes to finding a solution in a 2016 article titled "China Has a Water Crisis, How Can It Be Solved?" While industrial pollution is the most frequently discussed source of pollution, land use and degradation accounts for about half of the pollution found in China's water. Fertilizers, pesticides and livestock waste is carried into lakes, rivers, wetlands and coastal waters. Aquifers are also impacted as rainfall and snowmelt carry pollutants underground. By protecting forests and improving agricultural practices in targeted areas in China, the country can improve water quality. In fact, by targeting conservation strategies to roughly 1.4 million hectares, sediment and nutrient pollution could be measurably reduced by at least 10% in these small to medium-sized water catchments. These natural solutions have the potential to improve water quality for more than 150 million people. The WEF found that the CCP could even save itself some money if it could find a way to cast off corruption and look at the problem humanely. The article notes that the party was spending $8 billion per year on eco-compensation programs, while water quality upgrades using natural solutions that would benefit 30 of its largest cities would cost only $300 million per year.